Big 10 Plus 4 is a member of Odd Pods Media and ASAP All Sports All Plays Network.
Hello and welcome into Big 10 Plus 4, college sports with a Midwest perspective, blue collar and blue blood. I'm Dalton Shetler. If you're joining us on a visual medium, you can see Tony Hollingsworth there in the middle, Sam Sprunger there on the far end. We're going through what is probably the quietest week in college athletics. It's final exams week, and I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've been kind of lost. That's what people are hearing in libraries all around. But I've been just kind of lost, just kind of wandering around aimlessly without games to watch with the Big Ten this week.
What's that meme of that guy that's just sitting around in those different scenarios, blankly staring all by themselves?
That's how I feel.
Standing in an abandoned pool, just staring at the wall. Yeah, that's what it is right now.
What's my purpose right now? I don't
what do I do? Why do I exist?
But critical time for all of them. Go ahead, Sam.
It's kind of like, what is it, the one day that there's no major sports scheduled, like in any of the sports, it's the day after the Major League All-Star game or something like that. Like there's only 1 or 2 days period that there's never a major this is like that week for us in Big Ten and college football, I don't know, there's basketball going, but oh god,
but not really for the most part.
Right,
I mean, there aren't many of those.
Because even though you start your conference season, you've kind of went back to your warm-up games. So this is that week, like you said, finals week. Your attendance isn't always the best at games because kids are going home by now, and so yeah, I get it.
Well, and I can tell from the Michigan State side, there's a whole week off. They're going December 11th to December 18th for games, and then on the men's side, they went from I think the 10th to the 19th. So I mean, they just flat out there's no games happening, and students are knocking out what. Still is important in some aspects.
Right.
We get lost in all the money and all the dollars and cents that float around college athletics, but academics still certainly means a lot to the Big Ten, one of the premier conferences when it comes to the academic standard. But moving forward, for many of our listeners, it's bowl season. We have a bunch of different bowls.
Let's go bowling.
We've talked about the bowl games quite a bit here on the show, but we now know the Big Ten teams and who will be in which bowl games. So let's go ahead and start previewing some of these.
Real quick, can I?
Sure.
Can I? You last week your headline, I believe, was about the bowls, or maybe it was the week before. I forget which week it was, but you talked about the excessive amount of bowls.
Yep.
And that automatically that's going to have to require some 5 and 7 teams. Can we call those the bumper bowlers because they have to have the bumpers on?
Yes. I kind of like that as an idea. Yeah.
You're bowl eligible. You're bumper bowl eligible. They only get half the prize, the swag bags and stuff, just because, hey, 6 wins is still important.
And as we start kind of breaking down some of these Big Ten bowl games, we're going to try doing about 4 in this show, just for our listeners to know. We're going to aim for 3 next week, and then we'll focus on the college football playoff leading right up to the college football playoff. Yeah. But you'll start to notice a theme of, if it's not really that important of a bowl game, it's going to be hard to kind of preview anyway, because we don't really know who's all playing.
I was going to say, that's the big thing is we're going to try to do it as best as we can, just because we don't know, those people may not play. There's some people that might be intricate to the game that all of a sudden they're opting out, So
yeah, you look at a lot of players, and I mean, it's been over the last couple of days we've been finding out there's more and more players either transferring or coming out,
and for games that don't count, and I guess that's the biggest thing. And I'm sorry, Dalton, to kind of hijack
you're good,
your start, but like the way I look at bowl games that don't matter, and there's only 2 games that matter because there's only 4 teams playing for a national championship. Now, that's not to say individual schools can't say the bowls matter, but those bowls that aren't those semis are obviously just basically exhibitions. So the way I look at those is those are the teams that are trying to rebuild for next year now to get to the point where the other 4 are. So they're playing a game that if those people decide they're not going to play, that's great. This is essentially a really big time glorified practice game, basically, just because they're getting ready for next year at that bowl game.
This to me is equivalent to like an NFL preseason game. Like this is honestly to see what does your depth look like? What does your backup defensive tackle look like? What do you know? Do you have maybe a 5th or 6th string wide receiver that you didn't really get to see a whole lot throughout the regular season? Okay, now what does he look like? Here in a bowl game, maybe against not necessarily or maybe a team's number 1, but more likely a team's number 2, number 3 guy that may be moving up next year. So.
Well, and that's not to take anything. The Bulls used to have that gravitas that just like, ooh, you're going to the Rose Bowl. Now, this year, especially since Utah has already been there, and we'll talk about it in depth, but especially since Utah has already been there since or after last year's game, it's not as big of a deal anymore. So now it is literally one of those that, yeah, great, we're going to the Rose Bowl. It's still a great place to play, but we're playing for next year now. And you still want to win your game. You never want to lose, but this is a tune-up for next year.
Which perfectly leads us into the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Wisconsin and Oklahoma State. Yeah. And the reason to say that is because you both talk about, really you're looking at depth. You're looking at next year. Wisconsin has a newly hired head coach and Luke Fickell, who will be there in Madison with this game. But you look at the Wisconsin Badgers, Graham Mertz, the quarterback, he's gone. Keanu Benton, Nick Herbig, all have declared for the draft, so they're gone. Joe Tippmann gone. Jay Shaw gone. Tyler Beach gone. Justin Clark gone. Isaac Garendo gone. Samar Melvin gone. Titus Toller gone. Jalen Franklin gone. Like, that's the attrition that Wisconsin has. And Oklahoma State has 11 scholarship players that won't be in this game because they're already leaving as well. So, again, as we talk about, like, it's just kind of chaotic and a bit of a mess because these bowl games don't have necessarily the integrity that they once did. I don't know where you begin with this. Wisconsin starts as a favorite. We can open with that. But
well, and I guess that's kind of, even making Tony's point a little bit stronger, that it's much like a preseason game. Like this game, even though Wisconsin was kind of dumpster fire-ish at points during the season, if this were the 22 rosters, so the 2022 rosters that started the season, this would be a really good game, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're just looking at laundry that's the same as those 2 teams, and now you're not 100% positive what you're looking at. I hope to see Wisconsin do something with what they've got. Luke Fickell's not coaching this game, so it's not like, you can see what he's going to be like on the sidelines, but it's one of those that I'm sure I don't know the rules. Dalton, is this one of those even though he's hired, does he have to stay hands off until the end of the season, or can he give direction for that bowl game?
It's a good question. I actually don't know how that necessarily works either, if there is the tightrope to walk. I know he's personally came out and said that he's going to focus in on this bowl game, not just towards the future, because he's in his mind, it was when he walks in that locker room, there are guys that have earned this game, this extra game in that locker room, and he's got to pay the respect to it. And
sure,
you know what I mean? Like, you can't just work all this and then somebody else comes in and just kind of takes that opportunity away and acts like it doesn't matter.
I'm just wondering, there's no NCAA rulings or anything that says, hey, you're not the coach until the next football season or whatever, or is that he's hired, he could actually coach the game if he wanted? I don't know how this works.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do that. Like,
I haven't either.
Into a new program, because I think kind of like what Dalton said, why would you want to try to come in, implement all your stuff with really not necessarily a short amount of time, but not a true full off season with guys that you don't know is going to play or not. And then you're like, and again, like we've kind of pointed out, it's a game that really doesn't matter. Like if it mattered, okay, maybe we see Luke Fickell like, okay, look, I'm going to come in, I'm going to give them I'm going to try to go off of what they used before, maybe implement a little bit of my stuff, make it, as easy and as simple as I can. I would, and plus, like we said, if it doesn't really matter, does it really matter, or these games don't really mean much? Does it really matter if he kind of coaches right now? Because I mean, you're not coaching for anything; you've already got the job,
right? But I get what Dalton's saying. If you go in and start throwing in new stuff for next year, you're kind of screwing those people that aren't going to be back next year because they're graduating or whatever, and
that's what Fickell said. And just to be clear, not just me.
I get that. I get that. You were referencing what he had mentioned, but like that's one of those that I think he's respecting those guys that went through this really hard season this year and difficult season, and giving them that last song that they get to play. Now, if they opted out, then it's one of those that it's kind of, it means nothing to them. So I bet there's some that are sticking around because they don't have a future on Sundays next year. They want to play one more game or whatever.
Well, and to reference the article that Jesse Temple did from The Athletic, who does a phenomenal job covering Wisconsin football. Yeah. He said in one of the blurbs, Fickell said coaches have not made a decision about who will start at quarterback. That's with Graham Mertz not playing, if it's going to be Chase Wolf or if Miles Burkett will be the guy who gets to play in this game. But that kind of indicates to me at some level that Fickell is involved. I just don't know that he came in and said, hey, we're turning this over. This is my way moving forward type of deal.
I'm guessing maybe it's one of those, okay, coach, the guy that we would have started isn't here. Who would you like to get a look at while we play in our bowl game?
Well, and that's the thing. Wolf's been a backup for many years. He's an upperclassman. Burkett is an underclassman. So if you're looking to the future, that would be the guy to put in.
And maybe it's one of those, hey, you put, whoever in, they'll both get playing time, maybe, I'm sure. It's one of those that this is literally one of those situations where it is an exhibition. You do need to do some trying out, but I get Fickell's thought process in the same time. So
yeah, I was going to say, like you guys said, I think he does have a say so, like, okay, hey, this is who I've got at quarterback, this is who I want to look at.
It makes sense maybe that he would
see what this guy kind of look, and it does, because like like we said, he's not trying to throw everything out there for next year, but when you come into a new coach, new system like this, okay, what better way to evaluate your players than seeing them actually perform in a game? It's like, okay, now I've got something to go off of with you.
Well, and I just got to thinking, if the NCAA had like some sort of stupid rule that they tried to enact, like this year or something, and said, an outgoing coach has to, coach all the way through the season, even the bowl game or whatever. Think about the game Scott Satterfield would have had if he would have had to stay at Cincinnati and coach in his bowl game before going to his new team, because he would have had to go out in and try to beat the team that he's getting ready to go coach. It would have been humorous, I think, personally.
Well, as we look at some other Big Ten bowl games, let's switch over now to the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, because nothing screams lawn maintenance quite like the concrete jungle, and that's what we have now at Yankee Stadium.
Yankee Stadium.
Minnesota and Syracuse. And for this one, of course, we're still kind of looking at some of those different players, maybe opting in, opting out. We've seen Syracuse before mixing in with the Big Ten, just held on to beat Purdue, which really was Purdue just actively shooting itself in the foot in that game. Minnesota, we saw start off the year strong, and we said, look out, Minnesota might just win the Big Ten West. Then lost a good chunk of games in the middle of the year before then routing off, I think, 4 out of 5 to finish the season
to get
for the
back
Gophers.
Into contention before the end of the season.
Yeah. I mean, we saw kind of a roller coaster ride with Fleck and the Gophers this year, but going into this one, I believe Minnesota's like a 7.5 point favorite as we stand currently with the decisions that we know of players. Where do we feel about this?
Go ahead, Tony.
Go ahead, Tony.
How do I feel about Minnesota versus Syracuse up in the Bronx in New York? I mean, it'll honestly kind of be
cool venue to watch a game.
Yeah, it'll be a cool venue. It'll honestly be, I think, what we've really seen out of Minnesota most of this year. Because you think about all the injuries Minnesota had with PJ Fleck, with Mo Ibrahim. I mean, this is really what we've seen most of the year. It's just going to be really another Minnesota game. Obviously we'll have some of the starters be graduating, moving on. I don't know, is Mo graduating? Is he moving on?
I believe so. He's been around for a while.
Yeah, he is.
Well, I think his son's taking a starting spot next year in the Gopher lineup. No, I honestly, I'd be shocked unless it's for the venue that they'd be playing in. I would be shocked if Mo plays.
Yeah, because I mean,
spending part of the season injured and wanting to be ready for the draft, because I don't see, even if he had eligibility, I wouldn't see him coming back yet again. I think it was a big win for the Gophers that he came back this year, because I think he would have been very ready for the NFL next.
Year. And I mean, you look at the teams who have lost their star running backs or just really need a run game going. I mean, Mo would have been perfect. Now, again, kind of the same thing. How much would his health play into factor? Well, we don't know. We can just go off of what we've seen, at least so far this college football season. And he seems to be one of those running backs when he's healthy. He's probably one of the best athletes out there on the field. But he's not healthy. It's gonna be a bad day.
Sorry, don't mean to cut you off. I was just looking up at Mo Ibrahim. This is his 6th year of college football.
So he has to be. So that's a red shirt all 4 years and COVID
Does it have to be?
Hang on. Yeah, because here's the part where I'm ignorant on is, so he did have a red shirt his freshman season. He played the next 3. In 2021, as we know, he had that injury. I don't know if he got an injury red shirt or not. But if he did, you still would have a COVID year lingering around if you would want one.
He could be the super senior.
But yeah. I'm assuming he didn't get an injury red shirt because I'm not seeing notice on the website that I'm currently looking at. Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's possible. I don't know if he can get 2 reds. I don't know what the rules are anymore. It's so confusing. But go ahead, Tony.
Well, really want to stay.
Well, didn't they say there was a quarterback? I think it was in like one of the lower Division I schools, or maybe it was Division II, has been in college football for like 7, almost 8 years, just because of being a redshirt. He got medical waivers that they approved. He had the COVID year. Yeah, he's been in for
a graduate year. Don't you get 5 years to play to play throughout?
I think yeah.
Well, because I know you got some of those guys that graduate and then they go and transfer because they go play in in their graduate year or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to reference in basketball, Jalen Coleman Lands, who was playing in high school when I was still around and playing like high school ball in Indiana. He just finished last year helping Kansas win the national championship. He was in college for 7 seasons at 4 different schools. So wow. Yeah,
I don't understand, because before it used to be you have 5 years to play it for, and that was it.
A long time, yeah.
And then it's like, well, it's not fair to those people that maybe have an injury that they can't control, and like, okay, well, at a 6 year, well, then you throw COVID in there, and that's going to be a 4-year cycle where all those athletes, that 4 years of athletes have one extra year to boost that. There are literally people going to be here a decade.
Yeah, I mean,
and we're not going to know why. They're just
look at Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is 25, same age as Lamar Jackson, still playing in college football. And look at JT Daniels. JT Daniels asked to transfer again. So he was at USC. He's at Georgia. He's at West Virginia, and now he wants to transfer to a 4th school.
I'm sorry, but that's gonna, if he's doing it to up his NFL draft stock, if there is such a thing for him, I don't think he's doing himself very much service, because if you've played 5 years and you're going for your 4th school, what NFL team's gonna want to take you?
Remember the Brandon Whedon days coming out of Oklahoma State?
Yes, he was 29. Didn't he go play pro baseball first and then came back and played?
Yeah, then he came back, and
then you have Chris Wanke winning the Heisman Trophy back in the day. I believe he was 28 when he won it. But he did the same thing. I mean, it just
well for JT, I guess it kind of Does he want to do college football does he want to do the NFL like he's done his college football career? Be a backup 90% of the time. Because you look at Chase Daniel has made like 50+ million just being a backup and has played started 3 games. He just makes an insane amount of money.
He took Missouri to a very good bowl game and a good record his senior year. Okay, he was I believe they went to the Big 12 championship game that year. His last year.
Well, backup NFL quarterback's not a bad job. In Michigan State country, we reference Brian Hoyer all the time as that dude has just made it. I mean, that's amazing.
He's only started maybe 4 games his whole career.
He's been with Tom Brady forever at Foxborough. He's just a Super Bowl champ through and through.
Yeah, look at Kirk Cousins. How did Kirk Cousins start out? Back up to RG3, and then they're like, yeah, RG3 ain't gonna work. We'll have this Kirk Cousins kids go out. And then look at what he's done with Minnesota.
You like that?
He's like $84 million guaranteed. Kirk's like, no, I'm not doing this. You just give me all that money right up front.
Can I just say, Washington didn't just decide, well, he's not going to work out. They decided that he wasn't going to work out after they pushed him back onto the field with a major knee injury because they were in a playoff game. Okay, so Washington screwed RG3 over and then decided, oh, you know what? We can't use you anymore.
Well, let's be honest. We can throw that in just a myriad of issues that Washington is under siege for right now.
Sure, but
in the NFL.
Current topic at hand.
I'm with you.
They if anything, RG3, in my opinion, granted, he could have said, no, I'm not ready to go back out there, but he wanted to go just as bad as they wanted him. That's where the franchise that's supposed to have your best interests in mind should be like, well, yeah, we're in the playoffs, but how good are we going to be with a 30% RG3?
Right.
Yeah. I will say, as a Cowboys fan,
and we got way off topic, but this is
a little bit. Real quick, it makes me so happy and it makes me laugh when you see all the successful young coaches that are getting head coaching jobs. All of them tie back to the 2012-2013 Washington season. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Kevin McConnell. All of them have been successes and all have been tied back.
But they all had to leave
Washington.
They all had to leave Washington to become successful.
You want to stay in Washington?
But anyways, enough bashing the NFL. I don't care enough about the NFL to talk too much more longer about it.
Well, so the Bad Boy Mowers was our vehicle to talk about different eligibility issues with the NCAA, NFL issues. We got Tony's thought. Tony likes Minnesota a little bit in this game with Syracuse, where we're still trying to figure out maybe the Jimmies and Joes that are in the game. Real quick, because we are running heavy, Sam, do you like Minnesota as well? I think they open again as a 7.5 point favorite.
I would, because they've actually been pretty seasoned this year with playing with people who are filling in for injuries. So those guys that are probably going to be playing in this game anyway because of opt-outs or whatnot, they're going to have some, so if you're going based off anything from this last season, I think Minnesota's got an advantage because they had to throw in so many. Mo's backup, I don't even know who it is, but if Mo doesn't play, he's there, and he did well this year. Not anything Mo Ibrahim's level, but you get what I'm saying. So I would say Minnesota, in my thought, would have the upper hand as well.
Yeah, I like the culture of it.
Isn't bad at all,
no,
not at all.
But who knows? I haven't seen a report yet on Garrett Schrader, so I'm not sure if he's playing, if he's not playing. Honestly, at this point, it's just kind of waiting. And it's so funny too, because I've turned a leaf over to basketball season, and so to come back and be like, are these rosters completely different than I left them 2 weeks ago?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, it's something else. So let's move to the second quarter. All right, we got 2 more bowl games we're going to hit here. We're going to have a long first half before we switch to basketball and a special tribute before we get on the way out of here. But we got 2 more bowl games to touch on. Let's go ahead and move on over now to my personal favorite, the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Duke's Mayo knows how to sponsor and market better than anybody else.
Because of the Mayo bath? Is that what you love about it? Okay, fair enough.
And Duke's social media presence. They get it. They understand, hey, we're Mayo. Let's have some fun with this. Let's get ridiculous.
Are they
Let's have
better
some fun.
than Wendy's? because Wendy's Twitter account is amazing.
They're hilarious.
I haven't
Savages.
I haven't seen Wendy's active. I don't want them coming at me, but go at somebody else so I can see them again.
Hey,
but it's been a
Wendy,
while since I've
Dalton
seen that.
doesn't think you're any good anymore.
I don't
Dalton
need that.
Shetler. At Dalton
I like the
Shetler,
square burgers. I like the square burgers.
At Wendy's. At Dalton Shetler does not think you're good at your game anymore. I am going to cut this and make this a highlight.
Don't
and
believe
tag
that.
Wendy's. Oh no, I heard you off
Fake
air,
news.
Dalton, talking about how you just don't like Wendy's and their
Fake news.
social media existence anymore.
Wendy's, go ahead, get a bowl game, please. I'll support that too.
Oh my gosh, why don't they?
They would make so much money.
Oh,
Because I mean, they already do it for what was it last year for the Big Ten or not Big Ten, Big Noon Kickoff? Is like they were sponsored by Wendy's all the time.
Yeah.
So I mean, they could do it. They could, and they'd have a blast.
Anyways,
with it.
another sidetrack there.
Well, and shifting back to Dukes, I mean, we talk about the social media presence. I've admitted on here many times that Sickos Committee is like my favorite Twitter account going.
I follow now.
Yeah, it's so good.
Oh, yeah.
And Dukes Mayo had reached out and said, "Hey, we want to be the Sickos Committee Bowl." Like, I mean, they get it. Like they get it. But anyway,
they're not trying to oversell what they are. They're totally accepting of what they are. Let's have fun with it.
And it works. It works. But okay, so for the Big Ten, we have Maryland in this game going against NC State. Now, I believe I saw yesterday again, as I'm in Big Ten basketball mode between men's and women's, I'm seeing some football news pile through, and Rakeem Jarrett has decided to go to the NFL draft. He will not be playing in this game for the Terps. He's one of many. But the good news is for College Park, Talia Tagovailoa will be playing in this game for the Dukes Mayo Bowl. And I think anytime you have Talia out there, you've got a shot. But NC State is no joke. I think coming in at number 23, they went to the wire with Clemson earlier this year when they were still going with DJ Uiagalelei for a little bit. I was waiting for the bless you from Sam, but we'll move on. But we'll start breaking this one down. Sam, why don't you start?
Excuse me. Yeah, North Carolina State's not a bad team. You forget that, or not you, but you as in the collective, you forget possibly these guys were a top 10 team this year.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, they're like you said, 23rd now, but the AP is pretty reactionary. But to be in the top 10 at any point, that means that you've got some talent and some things in the cupboard. So yeah, NC State's not a bad team. They've just underperformed, or maybe they were a little overranked or whatever. But that is still, they're not a bad team. And Maryland is Talia eligible for the draft, or does he have to come back next year?
Another great question. Hang on, let me look that one up.
Because what I was going to say on that one is that bodes well for Terp Nation if he's eligible to go to the draft, but yet he's still playing, because that kind of lends to maybe he's going to stick around. But if he has to, then.
And I believe that is the case. Not 100% sure. Well, I'm looking. He's a redshirt junior, so he
could go.
Yeah, he could go. And I know in some press clippings he's said that it's still a decision to be made after the bowl game. He'll sit down with his family and figure it out.
I get that, but to me,
which at this point is an old-fashioned approach, by the way.
Yeah, no joke. But my whole thing is it bodes well in my mind because of today's climate when it comes to that. It bodes well for Maryland because he is playing in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he either wants to give it a swan song and he wants to go out, playing in a bowl game, or he intends to come back, and you don't sit out if you're intending to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I think to me, no matter really what he chooses to do, if he does decide to declare or not, you think about it, he didn't really get to play a full season. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot to see on him, at least for this year. Now, there is previous film on him, but I mean, really for him, if you are, okay, I need to give them as much as I can for what little bit I've been able to play this season. But I do agree. To me, again, the way the climate is, the fact that he has had an injury, injured riddled year, I think if he wasn't planning on coming back, I don't think he'd play, because I think he would be afraid of, okay, I'm going to potentially get hurt again. I don't want to do that if I'm potentially going to be going into the NFL. So I think he comes back. The thing that kind of makes me wonder, though, is with Devin Leary, declaring for the transfer portal and being kind of one of the bigger, quarterback targets for other, programs. What does NC State look like from that?
Yes.
I agree with Sam that at one point they were a top 10 team, and I think that does also include your depth. We think they have a lot of quality guys to go along with that, but it all starts at the quarterback situation. How good can your quarterback be? Because your quarterback is going to kind of be what sets the tone for the rest of your game, the rest of your season.
And I'm sorry, is it too much to ask that the transfer portal window opens after bowl season? Is it really too much? I'm serious because timing wise, I get it. We need to set this up if we want to hold bowl season to something that it used to be and what it used to be, then we need to make that transfer portal not open up until after bowl season, because all these people that would play normally, oh, hey, we're leaving. Well, you know what? Play one more game. It can't all be horrible. It just really, and if it is, then never mind. I'm on my old man soapbox. So.
Well, the respect for the bowl games and the integrity is lost. And to be honest,
it does
go on the system. It's not so much on the kids. Right. The system has failed this. The bowl's what they used to be.
And that's what I'm agreeing with is the adults make the portal windows. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So okay, hey, let's take this off the kids' plate because they need to get into the portal and find somewhere to go because of national signings and and stuff like that they've got to get out as quickly as possible and get to their destination as quickly as possible. If you delayed everything, maybe that helps. But let's go our way. Let's make the Bulls at the beginning of the season throughout the regular season.
I like that, but sorry, Tony, to jump in, but I was going to say we live in a world now where Jackson Smith and Jigba has the college football playoff coming up, and he's taking a waiver on it so he can go get ready for the NFL draft. What were you going to say, Tony?
Well, I was going to say two things with that. You look at Bryce Young. Bryce Young could declare he's going to come back because he's going to make $5 million off of his NIL deal next season. And then I also look at it if – when we were talking about kind of the integrity of the bowl season, I think that's why they also pushed a little bit more for the college football playoffs to expand. Because, you think about it, now more of these bowls can be more relevant and, again, can generate more money. Now, I know we talked about we think it should be at the beginning of the season and maybe even during the season. You could name a couple of your big rivalry matchups, a bowl game, and make a lot of money that way. I think that's also part of it is because now, you've got 12 teams going in. You can have 6 bowl games that actually mean something and can generate more money. But, like I said, I know we've copyrighted it, trademarked it at Wendy's. If you can help us with that, we'd appreciate it. I'm going to try to, offer the olive branch to Wendy's that we can copyright this. We'll maybe take a little bit of a percentage. We can help each other out. Just saying 4 for 4.
Again.
Okay, 4 for 4.
Again, right? At Dalton Shetler does not think at Wendy's is any good at Twitter
Fake
anymore.
News. Fake news.
Not fake news.
But yeah, and I don't want to be just a Big Ten homer, but to be honest, because of exactly what Tony said, Tony nailed it. We know Maryland has its quarterback. NC State, we don't know what looks like a quarterback. I kind of like Maryland here, which is maybe my segue to where I maybe don't like the Big Ten in a game. The Music City Bowl, where it's just one bass guitar strumming the same note. We have Iowa.
Kate McNamara yet, so they can't.
They can't do anything.
Well, so yeah, it's Iowa and Kentucky. And I was just going to say, so Spencer Petras has shoulder surgery. He's done. Alex Padilla is already running for the transfer portal. We don't really know what quarterback looks like for Iowa in a situation that was already kind of mocked. Not kind of. It certainly was mocked by the rest of the world. I don't know what that looks like against Kentucky in this game. And by the way, before we start,
a third one, right?
Before we start the analysis, I should say this is a repeat of last year. These two met up last year. Kentucky won the game by 3 points. I think it was 20-17. If we get that high
last year, though,
yes, it was the Citrus Bowl. If we get that high of scoring again, let's consider ourselves lucky. But Iowa, Kentucky. Now, what do you both think?
It's kind of funny that this game was the Citrus Bowl, and one of the two teams that played in the Music City Bowl plays in the Citrus Bowl this year.
Little swap trade.
Yeah. But anyways, this game, Wildcats 642, Hawkeyes 3.
Oh, wow,
Do you see this being a blowout, though?
You just put the ball on a tee for me right there, Dalton, because they don't have a quarterback. And even if they were to put their third, I will stand pat by this. If that quarterback is phenomenal, then somebody needs fired. Because if that person was on the roster last year and you let the atrocity of the offense that it was last year happen, you need to be fired. You need to be dismissed immediately. And again, almost like if Iowa would have beaten Ohio State, people should be fired on the spot as soon as the game's done. If Iowa wins this bowl and it's because of their quarterback, there need to be people fired, because where were you evaluating this before? I don't care if Kentucky plays their JV team. Seriously, if you're going to produce more than 10 points with a quarterback that didn't see any action this year, because I don't know of a third quarterback that played for Iowa, was there? It was only Padilla and Petrus. Yeah. So therefore, if they produce more than 10 points against anybody that is of a Power 5 conference football team, you're fired. I mean, seriously, it doesn't. Oh, golly. Blowout. Blowout at least 20-3.
I was going to say, if it's me, my punter can be my starting quarterback and my punter both, because it's really,
let's just put on first down once in a while, Tony.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter who you throw in there. Like you said, we don't know I don't even know if there probably is a third string quarterback.
There has to be. I'm guessing
they're between a couple of freshmen.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it's me, it doesn't really matter. You can throw them in. You can throw the punter in. It don't matter. Honestly, if it's me, I keep the punter in and just be like, look, keep him out there. You don't know what he's going to do. Is he going to punt? Is he going to try to go for it? Don't know. Offense is going to be terrible regardless.
Here's the reason why I am so adamant about this, Dalton. Let's think about what the Iowa offense produced against South Dakota State. Okay,
that was one of the great games of all time.
So they produced 3 points against that defense.
They are in the FCS playoffs. They are a Final Four team.
No, they're absolutely one of the elite teams in FCS. I get that, but at the same point, there's a reason why one team's FCS and one team's FBS. Okay, and so there should just be that ability to not, and we all saw, we didn't all see, we all remember App State beating Michigan back in 2005.
Yep. 07.
07, that's what I meant. Thank you. But it wasn't 7-3. You know what I mean? Like the Michigan put up points. They just didn't put up enough stupid points to keep up with App State. If they produce with a freshman against Kentucky, Mark Stoops team, and they put up more than 3 points, somebody should be fired, because they should have seen the ability of this quarterback to be able to operate in the offense to score. I'm sorry. I cannot wrap my head around it.
On our way out to halftime, I was looking up the spread and the over-under while we were going through that. The spread right now currently sits at 2.5 Iowa, favoring the Hawkeyes.
Their defense has to be the reason why for that.
Yeah.
The over for a 3-0 game.
Well, the over/under is set at 31.5.
Like, are they really just so because Will Levis is going into the NFL, they really think Kentucky's backup quarterback is going to be worse than Iowa's mystery quarterback that they're going to have.
So they're calling 17-15 game, basically.
Yes. Yep. Wow. Just as it should be. 17-15. Right. Let's make that happen.
City should go.
All right, let's go to halftime.
You are listening to Big 10 Plus 4, hosted on Anchor and StreamYard.
I'm Richie, a.k.a. Midnight Agent Raw.
I'm Devin, a.k.a. Special Delivery Dev.
We're the Super Media Bros podcast. And each week, we give a comedically informative take on movies,
music,
television,
pro wrestling,
and much more. Check us out at supermediabrospodcast.com Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Shades on.
We're off.
Hi, I'm Sam.
I'm Richie.
I'm Little Matt.
And here in the 500 Section Lounge, we are three dads who host a family-friendly weekly podcast.
Yep, we laugh, we go on tangents, we talk to great guests.
Tangents. I don't know what you're talking about with that. You know, there are gases leaking.
All right, okay.
Yeah, we have legendary conversations from sports to history and everything in between.
So be on the lookout for what we do next.
And always be there to
Grab a listen.
Time for the third quarter, so we get the second half underway, and we're going to be rather quick in the next two quarters, as we mentioned on the front end that this was going to be a long first half as we were breaking down bowl games. But we do want to switch over. Like I said, my mind is fully into basketball mode at this point between the men's and the women's side. We want to take a look at the AP Top 25 poll and the Big Ten in it, because number one, the Purdue Boilermakers, just like we all had it before the season.
Right.
Yeah. No, but it's been a remarkable year in West Lafayette to start things off, and nearly ended up with its first loss against Nebraska, found a way to hang on, but Purdue has looked the best out of everybody else so far in the country through the first, 9-10 games of the year, 10 games.
Well, I don't think necessarily any of us thought it was impossible a Big Ten team made it to number one at some point this year. I don't think.
Honestly, I kind of did.
Okay, well, let's say it this way. We wouldn't have necessarily been shocked if a Big Ten team got there, but we weren't necessarily expecting it. We were expecting a down year. Are you saying you are shocked at any Big Ten team?
I was shocked at any Big Ten team, given the top end talent that went out with the 3-4 lottery picks in the NBA draft, and given what teams like North Carolina had coming back, Baycott, Black, and there's a bunch of those squads. I mean, Houston looks good, with a bunch of top talent. There's so many of those teams with top end talent, and I didn't think the Big Ten had that. I didn't think they'd be able to get to number one because of that.
I guess I'm extremely more shocked that it's Purdue that made it to one rather than somebody.
Certainly agreed with that. I don't know who it would be, but I didn't think it'd be Purdue.
Maybe that's the better way to say it. I am complete, because Purdue didn't start this season ranked.
Right.
No.
And then, excuse me, they played just well enough to get to 24, I think, when they went out to Portland.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they made their huge jump up to number 5 after that. But they've just kind of, they're still doing everything that they were doing out in Portland. Now, we all know once you get into Big Ten conference season, when you go on the road, no matter where, if you're a good team, you're going to get, more than likely, you're going to get that team's best. And Nebraska, they beat Creighton. So I'm not going to say that this was a down game necessarily for Purdue. They didn't perform the way they had been, but Nebraska has performed against top level talent this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Sam, I'm a little worried for you guys, because we've seen a lot of number one teams go down so far. This
1976,
so far.
It's the thing of the past now.
Oh, okay. But no, I do agree. Can we
boiler up?
Can we give a little bit of a shout out to? I'm gonna say his last name, Tominaga, the guard for Nebraska. He was having a killer game against Purdue. I was watching that. I was like, it was funny. I was laughing. I saw him come in, do a couple 3 throws, and they put him on the bench. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you putting him on the bench? What are you doing?
Tony, did you just do a Seinfeld kind of sound there? What are you doing?
What are you doing? Have a little Jerry.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. But no, I really am surprised that Purdue has gone up that high, and I didn't get a chance to do it last week. Shout out to Illinois. They upset Texas.
Yeah,
which was
Purdue
big
to
for
number
them.
one.
Just to then get beat down by Penn State the very next game.
Yes.
Illinois is interesting, and the Brad Underwood press conference went viral for the fart noise he made after that game when asked about leadership on the team. But that's something else, though, too. I don't think a lot of folks really understand yet. Penn State's a good team. Penn State is old.
You talked about that last week.
Hey, honestly,
they've got age, which does do well in the tournament.
If I were to guess right now, I think Penn State's going to win quite a few more games. I think Micah Shrewsbury might end up being your coach of the year when this is all said and done in the Big Ten.
Okay, and this is not me being a Purdue homer here. What if Purdue stays 2-3 in the country, and Penn State is better, and sits kind of in the 6, but Purdue's outperforming what all they were looked at to be this year? Does Matt Painter take it from Shrewsbury then?
I think you might be right if they stay up around 2 or 3. But I mean, I'm
not holding my breath. I'm just saying.
I was gonna say the Big Ten just beats each other up. Yeah. So there are losses coming for everybody. Sure, it just is.
And that's why I was asking if Purdue stays up in the that top 5 area of the poll all season long, at the top of the Big Ten for most of the season, if not win the Big Ten. But Penn State goes, 12-8 or whatever, or 14-6. But
Penn State goes 14-6. Now it might be Micah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like considerably, like they're contending. They're in the top 3 seeds of the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. Who does that go to? Because Purdue's wasn't expected to be this.
No, it's a good point
at this point. So
that's a good point.
And I was going to say Michigan State's second to last game they played was at Penn State and beat Penn State. Surprisingly, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And of course, they beat up on Brown.
But they lost to Northwestern the game.
Yeah, they lost to Northwestern. I was like, what?
This is going to be the football season that we just experienced in the basketball season.
Yes. Big Ten basketball is always a bumpy ride, but is it so much fun. So much fun. And I do want to mention before we get to the fourth quarter real quick, and Sam has it if you're on with a visual medium up at the top, the other Big Ten teams ranked. Indiana's number 14, Illinois number 18, Maryland number 20, Wisconsin 22, Ohio State 23. Currently, Iowa and Michigan State are receiving votes at this time.
That's a big jump from the 3 that were in the top 25 to start the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Big Ten's looking pretty good. We'll be talking about that later on as well. But let's go ahead and move now to the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter, we kind of had a group chat open last night. We're talking about maybe what we want to do here or with this subject. And we decided at the end we'd take a moment to kind of give a tribute or a bit of a send-off from the Big Ten Plus 4. Mike Leach kind of unexpectedly passed away over the weekend, had a massive heart attack, went into critical condition, was hanging on at the hospital for a little bit, but finally ended up passing away at the age of 61, I believe, if memory serves right. Yes. And social media, at the very least, has been just sending its tributes, however it can kind of pay things forward because of the stories and the national treasure that Mike Leach was. I mean, we're missing one of the most original people that's ever existed in college football. He just was authentically himself. He was a stream of consciousness. I mean, himself, any thought that possibly went through his head, whether it be ridiculous, whether it be whatever, it just came out into a microphone, and it always was entertaining, influential. It was impacting. He was a voice you listened to. And so we figured with the last couple of minutes here, we'd kind of go around and share maybe some of our Leach memories or what he meant to us personally.
I'll go ahead and start first, Tony. This was, excuse me, this kind of struck me. It shouldn't have with our alliance to the Big Ten, but the aspect of knowing what Mike Leach was, like you said, he didn't have an on deck circle for what his thoughts. It came into his brain, and if he had something to say, he was saying it. He wasn't worrying about whose feelings it hurt, and that to me is not. That's a good aspect, because that's one of those that he's not thinking, okay, how do I say this the right way not to hurt somebody's feelings? And that's not to say he was callous or didn't care. It needs to be said this way so you get an understanding. Like him or not, agree with him or not, he made you think when he said something about something of a topic of importance. Now, he had some great lines.
Oh, yeah.
Some responses. There was a video that ESPN put out of his kind of the tribute, and they asked him about, it was after a game, and he's like, oh, the environment's like Woodstock, except for no, everybody's got their clothes on, you know.
Yes.
And that is Mike Leach. I mean, you know, in press conferences, they're asking him about if Bigfoot exists, and he's holding conversation. I found a story by Lincoln Riley. Excuse me, that he was talking about his first Lincoln Riley. I don't know. Okay, did Lincoln Riley work for?
Yes.
Okay,
He's
that,
part of
so
the
this was
coaching tree.
okay. So Lincoln Riley was in his first or second year at Tech. He was doing some work in Coach Leach's office, and his cell phone rang. Coach Leach's cell phone rang, and he answers it. And he goes, starts talking, and I mean, like having just like a conversation. And Riley says, you know, normal just short conversations with Mike Leach lasted an hour. And he said, this person just the conversation went, and then all of a sudden you hear Coach go, hello, can you hear me? He closes his phone, opens it back up, calls it back, starts and has another half-hour conversation, hangs up, and Riley asks, oh, who's that? He goes, I don't know, it was the wrong number. Like that was Mike Leach. You know, I also heard one other one, and then I'll let Tony, you go ahead and go. Danny Amendola was talking about when he was at college at Texas Tech. They went to a music festival, and they thought it would be funny to call Coach Leach at 2:00 in the morning at the height of the evening. And he said there was 5 or 6 of them in the group. He talked to each of them for an hour and a half. Like he cared about those are stories that's a human being you wanted to know. You know, you don't have to agree with him all the time. It was just, he seemed to be one of those people that if he invested the time to put you on his team, he loved you and he wanted to know more about you. He got to know you. He cared about you. That is a coach that is going to be missed.
Yeah. And I do like the fact that Mississippi State, the team did come out and say that they wanted to continue to play in the bowl game against Illinois. For
Coach Leach would have had kittens if they would have said no.
Oh, well,
yeah. And not to, I was going to say, not to fully jump on the ship that Tony's saying, but I saw in that quote from the source or whatever, I think Ross Dellinger was the one who tweeted it out, said that they said, could you imagine how mad Mike Leach would be if we didn't play in this bowl game? The stadium has a pirate ship in it.
Yes. That's very true. It was so fitting, isn't it? Oh my gosh. I mean, this, and I'm sorry, Tony, but like to think about that and to think that this happened and to think that Coach Leach was a pirate nut. Like, he's absolutely, Dellinger's right.
And I mean, you think about it too. He's the original curator of the air raid offense. Like he's the one that came up with that, and it really is what set up Oklahoma with Bob Stoops. And then I mean, that's what really took off his coaching career.
And think about something, and this was brought up by Bobby Carpenter on ESPN U yesterday. And I had literally just thought about it. You know, I was thinking about his process as a head coach throughout his career. He was at Texas Tech, he was at Washington State, and he was at Mississippi State. Okay. Those are all the secondary teams in the state that they reside in. Yep. And that kind of fit as Mike Leach's style. He was the front runner to be the Tennessee replacement after Philip Fulmer retired. Something happened to where he didn't get that. I forget exactly the whole story. He had the job offered to him, and the AD got fired on the flight home. So I believe they rescinded the offer because that's not the way they wanted to go, I guess, maybe. But he didn't spend a lot of time at big programs. He was at Oklahoma for one season, and that was it. You know, he didn't necessarily need that limelight to shine like he did.
Yeah. And I do want to point out one real quick thing from, surprisingly enough, Nick Saban, because I think Nick Saban kind of described it best, and this is one of the few times I'll ever give Nick Saban credit for doing something like that. His statement was, I thoroughly enjoyed getting to know Mike over the last several years. I never knew quite where our conversations were going, but they always made me smile. And I mean, that's kind of the epitome, I think, of Mike Leach, is you really didn't. You never knew where the conversation was going to go, but you knew you were going to have a good conversation out of it. And you knew you were going to have a good time.
And Ryan McGee from ESPN was telling a story. He said he had an interview set up with Coach, and he said he kind of knew Coach. And so he was trying to set him up with some stuff like, he's from the South in like North Carolina area. So, but he had like a bolo tie on and he kept fidgeting with it. Ryan McGee did. And Coach Leach obviously noticed. And he said he had 15 minutes to do this interview. He ended up spending almost 3 days with Coach Leach. Because after the interview, Coach Leach started talking. They started talking Civil War history. They started talking about this, that. Ryan McGee said, I ended up spending almost 3 days with Coach Leach because of just some random things. And and Leach even said he knew what McGee was doing, trying to bring his attention to this bolo tie to spur conversations. And he still spent 3 days with him. Like a genuine man.
It just was, and I think that's the best way to put it. And there's all kinds of moments. I remember his marriage advice.
Yeah,
you're gonna want to elope. That's one of the great ones.
Yep.
This year, when he was mad at how the receivers were playing, and he folded up their chairs on the sideline and threw them down on the ground, was great. But one of my all-time favorites, and this is how we can wrap it, is him talking when he was still the head coach at Washington State. If the mascots had a Royal Rumble fight, who would win? And here was one of the quotes, and this just goes again to credit the stream of consciousness we talked about. He just instantly, with the quote, says, well, first of all, what kind of mythical powers does the Sun Devil have? We have to consider that. I'm going to say the Wildcat's out. The Trojan, does he have a horse or is he on foot? Does he have a bow and arrow or just his sword? The Bruin's definitely formidable. Another bear up there, a cow. End quote. It goes on for more and more time. I mean, it's worth your time to just spend some time and just look up the Mike Leach videos.
That
because
tells you that
that
thought process came up in his mind at some point in his life, and he did the analysis and thought, put that right here for the
for that question one day.
It's Mike Leach. It's Mike Leach.
He was a great guy to listen to. He was one hell of a coach too. I mean, he knew his X's and O's. And the crazy thing was he never played college football.
No, never played it.
True.
Yeah, he pretty much everything he ever did was through
law
school,
degree.
And then he got to watch. Yeah, he has his law degree. He has his master's in sports science. But I mean, you think about it, he learned from Lavelle Edwards at BYU. So I mean, that's really where he started to watch everything and followed him everywhere, and that's what got his coaching career started.
An incredible man, an incredible personality, and he will certainly be sorely missed among college football. The game, its people, everybody included. All right, but that's our tribute to Mike Leach. We wanted to make sure that we spent a little bit of time talking Mike Leach. So on the way out the door, Sam, Tony, take it away and let everybody know where they can find us.
All right, on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the TikToks, you can find us at Big 10 Plus for Dalton, Tony, spell it out, PLUS. Plus. What about Facebook, Tony?
That's the best part about Facebook. You can save time, money, effort, energy, the 5 E's. You can save it all. I don't know what the 5th E stands for, but that's what we're going with. Okay.
Right.
You can just put Big 10 plus 4 with the plus, or if you want to take the time, you can spell it out. Facebook doesn't matter, doesn't care.
How about that? Okay.
Find us on Odd Pods Media every week. We stream at least, during the height of basketball and football season, twice a week on ASAP Network. Then afterwards, if you just have to watch us, our video, you can find us on Spotify and watch our video there. Yep. That's it, Dalton. It's all you now, fella.
I'll take the baton back, and we want to thank all of you so much for tuning in for another edition of Big 10 Plus 4. As Sam and Tony mentioned, there will be some more Big 10 Plus 4 later on this week, as we'll really get into some more of the bowls and Big 10 basketball. But a big
hirings.
Thank you to and hirings. Purdue's got its new head coach that'll come up later in the week.
We also want to cover a little bit of Wisconsin, where they went with their coach, Nebraska. Some of those Big 10 hirings that we've had to endure.
So there's plenty more. Make sure you come back and check us out at Big 10 Plus 4. Right. But for Sam Sprunger, Tony Hollinsworth, myself, Dalton Shetler, until next time, so long.
See ya.
Bye.